In 1587, 115 English settlers arrived in the New World to build England's future. They were led by a newly appointed governor, John White. But within weeks of their arrival, the colony was already struggling. Supplies were low. Tensions were rising. So White made a decision that would change his life forever. He sailed back to England for reinforcements. He left behind his daughter, Eleanor, and his newborn granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World. He promised to return quickly. He didn't. When he finally came back 3 years later, every man, woman, and child was gone. No bodies, no signs of battle, no graves, only one word carved into wood: CROATOAN. To understand how an entire colony vanished, we have to rewind, not just to the island, but to a war that consumed an empire. Chapter 1. A World on Edge. The late 1500s was not just an age of exploration. It was an age of religious feud and imperial rivalry. England was Protestant, Spain was Catholic, and both believed they were chosen by God. Tensions had been building for decades. Piracy, trade disputes, and England's support of Dutch rebels fighting Spanish rule. Then came 1587, the same year Roanoke was founded. King Philip II of Spain was preparing something massive, an invasion. Spain assembled the Spanish Armada, a fleet designed to crush England and restore Catholic dominance. England, under Queen Elizabeth I, braced for war, and suddenly every ship mattered, every sailor mattered, every supply line mattered, including the one meant for a fragile colony across the Atlantic. Chapter 2. The War That Trapped the Colony. When John White departed Roanoke in 1587 to obtain desperately needed supplies from England, he fully expected to return within a matter of months. But the outbreak of full-scale war between England and Spain changed everything. English ships were commandeered for defense. Merchant vessels were converted into warships. The English Channel became a battleground. White begged for passage back to America. He was denied. England could not spare ships, not while the Spanish Armada loomed. In 1588, the long-anticipated invasion finally began. King Philip II launched the Spanish Armada, a fleet of roughly 130 ships carrying thousands of soldiers. Its mission was clear: sail through the English Channel, link up with Spanish forces in the Netherlands, and invade England. If successful, it would be the end of England. The Armada entered the Channel in the summer of 1588. English ships shadowed it for days, keeping their distance. Then, under cover of darkness, England sent fire ships drifting into the Spanish formation, forcing the fleet to scatter. The following day, the two sides clashed near Gravelines. The English ships were smaller, faster, and more maneuverable. And finally, the Spanish formation broke. But it wasn't just English cannons that defeated the Armada. As the damaged fleet attempted to retreat north around Scotland and Ireland, violent storms tore through. Ships wrecked against rocky coasts, and thousands of sailors never made it home. England survived, but survival came at a cost. Resources were exhausted, ships were damaged, and the war was far from over. It marked the beginning of a long and exhausting struggle. For years after 1588, England and Spain continued to clash at sea. Naval skirmishes erupted across the Atlantic. English privateers raided Spanish treasure fleets. Colonial outposts became targets. Trade routes became battlegrounds. The conflict drained both nations. And across the ocean, Roanoke waited. 1 year passed. Then year 2. Then year 3. No reinforcements. No supplies. No word. Imagine being there, watching the horizon, waiting for sails that never appear. Chapter 3. The Empty Settlement. 3 years after he left, John White finally saw the shoreline of Roanoke again. It was August 1590, but the island did not welcome him. As his ship approached the outer banks, the sky began to darken. The wind shifted. Waves rose violently beneath the hull. What should have been a simple landing turned into a fight against the sea itself. Rain lashed across the deck. The ship pitched and groaned. Anchors struggled to hold. For hours, they battled the storm, unsure if they would even reach the shore alive. Some of the crew urged a retreat. The coastline was treacherous. But White refused to turn back. He had waited 3 years. He would not be stopped by weather. At last, under skies still rumbling with distant thunder, he stepped onto the sand. This was the moment he had imagined for 3 years. He expected to hear sounds of life, voices of children and people on the island. Instead, there was only wind. The settlement stood in silence. No smoke rising from chimneys, no guards posted at the fort, no movement behind the wooden walls. White walked forward slowly. The houses were still there, but they had been carefully dismantled. Not burned, not destroyed, taken apart, as if the people had left on purpose. There were no bodies, no scattered belongings, no signs of struggle. Even the boats were gone. His eyes swept the settlement, searching for any sign of life. Then he saw it, carved into one of the wooden posts.
CROATOAN.
White had given strict instructions before he left. If the colony was in danger, they were to carve a cross beside the message. There was no cross, which meant one thing. They had not fled in terror, but instead chosen to go. But chosen to go where? And why had they never returned? White wanted to sail immediately to CROATOAN Island. He believed his family might still be alive. But before he could set sail toward CROATOAN, dark clouds swallowed the sky. The sea turned restless. The crew refused to risk another crossing as the winds grew violent. And once again, the ocean decided his fate. He was forced to leave and never saw his daughter again. Chapter 4. The Silent Possibilities. Historians now believe several possibilities overlap. Triering evidence shows the region experienced one of the worst droughts in 800 years between 1587 and 1589. Crops would have failed. Hunger would have spread. Relations with some native tribes were already strained from earlier English expeditions. Without supplies, without military protection, without communication, the settlers may have made the only rational choice: integrate, survive, disappear. Some later accounts describe native communities with European features, lighter eyes, different physical traits. Archaeological finds on Hatteras Island include English-style metalwork, but no definitive proof, no written confession, no cemetery, no final chapter. A colony erased. Here's the haunting truth. Roanoke may not have been destroyed. It may have been abandoned by history itself. A colony caught in the crossfire of empires, sacrificed not by violence on the island, but by war across an ocean, while England and Spain fought for dominance. A small settlement waited to be remembered, and when help never came, they adapted or they perished quietly. We may never know, but one thing is certain. They were not simply lost. They were forgotten by a nation at war, and all that remains is a word carved into wood.